The next morning, Jamal woke to the sound of raised voices downstairs. He blinked against the sunlight streaming through his curtains, his brain still foggy with sleep, but the tension in the air snapped him awake instantly. Throwing off his covers, he crept to his bedroom door and cracked it open just enough to hear his parents' heated exchange. "Absolutely reckless, Marcus. You went straight to the media without even talking to me first." His mother's voice was sharp, threaded with a rare anger. "What was I supposed to do, Lisa? Wait for the department to sweep it under the rug?" Marcus shot back. Chief Morrison made it clear he wasn't taking this seriously. Jamal's stomach twisted. He hadn't realized his dad had spoken to the press. Slipping out of his room, he padded down the stairs, the wooden steps cool beneath his bare feet. His parents stood in the kitchen, his mom still in her scrubs from the night shift, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. His dad was dressed in a crisp black t-shirt and fatigues, his posture rigid. Lisa noticed Jamal first. Her expression softened slightly, though the worry in her eyes didn't fade. "Morning, baby." Marcus turned, his face unreadable. "You're up early." Jamal swallowed. "I heard yelling." His parents exchanged a glance. Lisa sighed, running a hand over her braids. "Your father gave an interview to the Crestwood Chronicle last night. About what happened?" Jamal's eyes widened. "It's in the paper?" Marcus nodded. "Front page." Before Jamal could process that, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He pulled it out. Dozens of notifications flooded his screen. Texts from friends, Instagram tags, even a Twitter mention from someone he didn't know. His thumb hovered over one from Tyler. "Dude, you are famous." "Check the news." Jamal's heart pounded. He opened the link. There, splashed across the Chronicle's website, was a photo of him and his father standing outside their home, Marcus's arm around his shoulders. The headline screamed, "Green Beret son harassed by Crestwood PD. I ask this how you protect and serve." Jamal's breath caught. The article quoted Marcus at length, his military service, his demand for accountability, his blistering critique of Officer Harris's conduct. But what made Jamal's skin prickle was the last line. "This isn't just about my son. It's about every kid in this town who's been made to feel like a criminal just for existing." The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Jamal looked up at his parents. "This is everywhere, isn't it?" Lisa's mouth was a tight line. "Yes, and it's about to get worse." As if on cue, a loud thud came from the front of the house. Jamal flinched. Marcus was already moving, striding to the living room window and peering through the blinds. His shoulders tensed. "Reporters?" Lisa asked. "Worse," Marcus muttered. He stepped aside so Jamal could see. Outside, a crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. Some held signs, "Justice for Jamal and Crestwood PD," and the profiling. Others were just watching, phones raised to record. And at the edge of the group, leaning against a squad car with his arms crossed, was Officer Harris. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were locked on their house. Jamal's pulse roared in his ears. "What do we do?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "We don't hide." He turned to Lisa. "Call your brother. Get him to reach out to the NAACP legal team. I want every step of this documented." Then to Jamal. "Get dressed. We're going out there." Lisa's hand shot out, gripping Marcus's arm. "Are you crazy? You're going to escalate this." Marcus met her gaze. "It's already escalated. Now we control the narrative." 10 minutes later, Jamal stood beside his father on their front porch, squinting against the morning sun. The crowd hushed as Marcus stepped forward. Cameras clicked. Someone started live streaming. "My name is Sergeant Marcus Reynolds," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly. "And if you're here because you care about justice, then I thank you. But if you're here for spectacle..." His gaze flicked to Harris. "You're wasting your time." A murmur rippled through the crowd. A reporter shouted, "Sergeant, what's your response to Chief Morrison calling this a misunderstanding?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "My response." He pulled Jamal closer. "Look at my son. Really look at him. Then tell me what part of this was a misunderstanding." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from the back of the crowd, a new voice cut through. "We stand with Jamal." The air in Crestwood High's hallway was thick with tension as Jamal shouldered his way through the crowded corridor, his backpack heavy with unfinished homework and the weight of the past week's scrutiny pressing down on him like a physical force. Everywhere he went, whispers followed, some supportive, others laced with venom. That's him, the kid who got that cop in trouble. Bet his dad made it all up for attention. He kept his head down, his hood pulled up like armor, but the stare still burned. Tyler fell into step beside him, bumping his shoulder. "Don't let these losers get to you," he muttered, shooting a glare at a group of kids who quickly looked away. "They're just mad 'cause you're famous now." Jamal snorted, but the humor didn't reach his eyes. Famous for what? Being black in the wrong place. Tyler's grin faded. For standing up. That's more than most of these people have ever done. Before Jamal could respond, the sharp crackle of the PA system cut through the chatter. "Jamal Reynolds, please report to Principal Higgins' office immediately." A hush fell over the hallway. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Jamal said, but his stomach lurched. He hadn't done anything, but that hadn't mattered before. The walk to the office felt like a mile. The secretary gave him a tight smile as he entered, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "Go right in, sweetie. They're waiting for you." "They?" Pushing the door open, Jamal froze. Principal Higgins sat behind her desk, her fingers steepled. To her left stood Officer Harris, out of uniform but radiating authority in a crisp polo with the Crestwood PD logo. And to her right, Chief Morrison. Jamal's pulse spiked. This wasn't a meeting. This was an ambush. "Jamal," Principal Higgins began, her tone sickly sweet. "We've asked Officer Harris and Chief Morrison here today to clear the air. There's been so much miscommunication lately." Harris met Jamal's eyes for the first time since the park. His expression was unreadable. Morrison leaned forward. "Son, we're here to apologize for any distress caused. Officer Harris has been reprimanded, and we're implementing new sensitivity training for the entire force." He spread his hands, like he was offering a gift. "We'd like to put this behind us." Jamal's nails dug into his palms. "Son," like they were buddies. Like this was just some minor misunderstanding. Principal Higgins beamed. "Wonderful. Jamal, we'd love for you to make a statement to the school paper about how Crestwood PD is committed to positive change. A real healing moment for our community." The room swayed. They wanted him to thank them, to be their poster child for forgiveness, so they could pat themselves on the back and move on. Harris finally spoke, his voice low. "I overstepped. I own that." His jaw twitched. "But this has gotten out of hand. Protests. Media. People calling for my job." He locked eyes with Jamal. "Don't you think it's gone far enough?" The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken threat. Jamal's mouth was dry, but his voice didn't waver. "No." Silenced, Morrison's smile hardened. "Excuse me. You heard me." Jamal stood, his chair scraping loudly. "You don't get to harass me, then act like I'm the problem when people find out." He turned to Higgins. "And you don't get to use me to make the school look good." Harris's face darkened. "Listen here, kid." "No, you listen." Jamal's hands trembled, but he didn't back down. "You laughed at me. You treated me like a criminal. And now you're scared because my dad won't let you sweep it under the rug." He looked at Morrison. "Sensitivity training? That's your solution. How about firing cops who need training not to harass kids?" The principal shot to her feet. "Jamal, that's enough." The door burst open. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression thunderous. He'd clearly run here. His shirt was damp with sweat, his phone clutched in one hand. "Got your emergency callback message," he said to Jamal, then glared at the others. "What the hell is going on here?" Morrison paled. Harris stiffened. Jamal exhaled for what felt like the first time in minutes. They wanted me to forgive and forget. Marcus's laugh was sharp as a blade. Of course they did. He stepped fully into the room, his presence making the space feel suddenly smaller. "Let me make something clear. We're not here for your PR stunt. If you want to make things right, start by admitting the truth. Your officer abused his power. And until that happens..." He placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. "We're done talking." As they walked out, Jamal heard Higgins hiss to Morrison, "I told you this was a bad idea." Marcus didn't stop until they were outside, the school doors swinging shut behind them. Then he turned to Jamal, his eyes blazing with pride. "You stood your ground." Jamal swallowed hard. "They just wanted me to shut up." "Yeah." Marcus pulled him into a quick, fierce hug. "But you didn't." Over his father's shoulder, Jamal saw faces pressed against the school windows, watching. Tyler gave him a thumbs up. A teacher shook her head. And through it all, one thought burned brighter than the rest. The afternoon sun hung lazily over Crestwood, casting long shadows across the quiet suburban streets as 12-year-old Jamal Reynolds made his way home from school. His backpack, heavy with textbooks, bounced lightly against his spine as he took his usual shortcut through Maplewood Park, a route he had walked countless times before. The park was nearly empty, just a few scattered joggers and an elderly couple sitting on a bench, feeding pigeons. Jamal barely paid them any mind, lost in thoughts of the upcoming math test and whether his dad would be home in time for dinner. His father, Sergeant Marcus Reynolds, was a Green Beret, frequently deployed on missions that kept him away for weeks, sometimes months at a time. But this week was different. Marcus was on leave, and Jamal had been looking forward to spending time with him, even if it was just helping him fix the garage door like he'd promised. Jamal was halfway across the park when the flashing lights of a police cruiser flickered in his peripheral vision. At first, he thought nothing of it. Maybe the officer was responding to a call somewhere else. But then the car slowed, keeping pace with him. A knot of unease tightened in his stomach. He kept walking, eyes forward, but the cruiser rolled to a stop beside him. The passenger side window rolled down, and a deep voice called out, "Hey kid, where you headed in such a hurry?" Jamal turned to see Officer Dan Harris, a broad-shouldered man with a buzz cut and a stern expression, watching him with narrowed eyes. Jamal had seen him around town before. Harris had a reputation for being overly aggressive, especially with kids from the Southridge neighborhood, where Jamal lived. Swallowing his nerves, Jamal forced politeness into his voice. "Just heading home, sir." Officer Harris stepped out of the car, his boots crunching on the gravel. He was taller up close, his shadow stretching over Jamal like a looming wall. "Home, huh? And where's that?" "Southridge," Jamal answered, shifting his backpack strap. "A few blocks past the park." Harris smirked, glancing around as if expecting someone to jump out from behind a tree. "You sure you're not meeting up with friends? Maybe causing a little trouble?" Jamal frowned. "No, sir. I'm just walking home." The officer crossed his arms. "Let me see some ID." Jamal blinked. "I'm 12. I don't have an ID." Harris chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "That's convenient. So how do I know you're not out here skipping school or up to something you shouldn't be?" Jamal's pulse quickened. He knew this wasn't right. He hadn't done anything wrong. But he also knew better than to argue with a cop. His dad had drilled that into him. Stay calm. Be respectful. Don't give them a reason. "I have my school ID in my bag," Jamal offered, reaching for his backpack. Harris held up a hand. "No sudden moves, kid. Just keep your hands where I can see him." Jamal froze, his fingers inches from the zipper. The officer's tone had shifted from mocking to something harder, more dangerous. A cold trickle of fear ran down Jamal's spine. He slowly lowered his hands. Harris smirked again, as if enjoying the reaction. "You know, I stop a lot of kids around here. Most of them don't act this nervous unless they're hiding something." Jamal clenched his fists, frustration bubbling up. "I'm not hiding anything. I just want to go home." The officer leaned in, his voice dropping to a mocking whisper. "Or what? You gonna call your daddy to come save you?" Something inside Jamal snapped. He straightened, meeting Harris's gaze. "My dad's in Special Forces. He taught me to respect the law, but I didn't do anything wrong." For a second, Harris just stared. Then he threw his head back and laughed, a loud, derisive sound that echoed across the empty park. "Special Forces? Yeah, right. Bet your dad's a janitor or something." Jamal's face burned. He wanted to shout, to defend his father, but he knew it wouldn't help. Instead, He reached for his phone. "You don't know my dad," he muttered. Harris wiped fake tears from his eyes, still grinning. "Tell you what, why don't you call him? Let's see if this Special Forces dad shows up." Jamal didn't hesitate. He dialed his father's number, his fingers trembling slightly. The phone rang twice before Marcus answered, his voice steady and calm. "Jamal? Everything okay?" Jamal swallowed hard. "Dad, I need you. I'm at Maplewood Park. A cop won't let me go home." There was a beat of silence. Then, in a tone that sent a shiver down even Harris's spine, Marcus said, "I'm on my way." The call ended. Jamal lowered the phone, his heart pounding. Harris was still smirking, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes now. "Let's see how long this takes," the officer said, leaning against his cruiser. Neither of them had to wait long. Less than 10 minutes later, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and out stepped Sergeant Marcus Reynolds, but he wasn't in uniform, just a plain black t-shirt and cargo pants. But everything about him screamed military. His posture was rigid, his movements precise. His dark eyes locked onto Officer Harris, like a predator sizing up prey. Harris's smirk vanished. Marcus didn't say a word at first. He just walked up, his presence alone making the officer take an involuntary step back. Jamal had seen his father angry before, a controlled, simmering fury that manifested in clipped words and rigid posture. But this was different. This was something deeper, something colder. Marcus Reynolds didn't raise his voice as he stepped between his son and Officer Harris, but the weight of his presence was enough to make the cop's fingers twitch near his holster. The air between them crackled with tension, thick enough that Jamal could barely breathe. Harris's smirk had dissolved into a tight-lipped grimace, his earlier bravado evaporating under Marcus's unblinking stare. "You this kid, Special Forces dad?" Harris repeated, though his voice lacked its earlier mocking edge. He shifted his weight, his hand still hovering near his belt. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at Jamal, his dark eyes scanning for any sign of distress. "You all right?" he asked, his voice low. Jamal nodded, though his throat felt dry. "Yeah, he just wouldn't let me leave." Marcus turned back to Harris, his expression hardening. "You detained my son." Harris bristled. "I didn't detain anyone. Kid looked suspicious, so I asked him some questions. Standard procedure." "Standard procedure?" Marcus repeated, his tone dangerously calm. He took a step forward, and Harris instinctively stepped back, his shoulder bumping against the cruiser. "You stop a 12-year-old walking home from school, demand ID he doesn't have, mock him when he tells you who his father is. That standard for you?" Harris's jaw tightened. "Look, I was just... Let me see your badge." Marcus cut him off, his voice leaving no room for argument. For a second, Harris looked like he might refuse. Then, with a grunt, he reached into his breast pocket and pulled out his badge. Holding it up, Marcus studied it for a long moment before nodding once. "Officer Dan Harris." His gaze flicked to the cruiser's insignia. "Crestwood PD." "Yeah," Harris muttered, tucking the badge away. "And who the hell are you?" Marcus reached into his own pocket and produced a military ID. Holding it out, Harris took it reluctantly, his eyes scanning the information. His face paled. "Sergeant First Class Marcus Reynolds, 1st Special Forces Group Airborne." The blood drained from Harris's face. His fingers tightened around the card before he handed it back, his earlier bravado crumbling. "All right, so you're military. That doesn't change the fact that your kid was... My son was walking home." Marcus interrupted, his voice still quiet, but carrying an edge that made Harris stiffen. "You had no probable cause to stop him, no reason to question him, and you sure as hell had no right to laugh in his face when he told you who I was." Harris's mouth opened, then closed. He glanced at Jamal, then back at Marcus, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed. "I was just doing my job." Marcus's lip curled. "Is that what you call it?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Jamal watched, his heart hammering, as his father and the cop stood locked in a silent battle of wills. Harris was the first to break, his shoulders slumping slightly. "All right, look," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe I was a little overzealous." Marcus didn't move. Apologize to my son. Harris blinked. What? You heard me. Marcus's voice was steel. You embarrassed him. Humiliated him for no reason. Now you're going to look him in the eye and apologize. Harris's face twisted, caught between indignation and the dawning realization that he was in way over his head. He glanced at Jamal, his mouth working silently for a moment before he exhaled sharply. Fine. He turned to Jamal, his jaw tight. Kid Jamal, right? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have laughed at you. The apology was grudging, but Jamal felt a small flicker of satisfaction anyway. He nodded once, not trusting himself to speak. Marcus studied Harris for another long moment before stepping back. We're done here. He placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder, guiding him toward the SUV. Harris watched them go, his expression unreadable. But as Marcus opened the passenger door for Jamal, the cop called out, You think this is over? You can't just. Marcus turned his head slightly, cutting him off with a look. It's over when I say it's over. Harris shut his mouth. The SUV door closed with a solid thunk, sealing Jamal inside. He let out a shaky breath as his father circled the vehicle and slid into the driver's seat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Marcus turned the key in the ignition, the engine roaring to life. You okay? He asked again, his voice softer now. Jamal nodded. Yeah, just pissed. Marcus's mouth quirked in a faint smile. Good. Means you've got a spine. He put the car in drive, pulling away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, Jamal could see Harris still standing there, watching them go down. The internet had officially lost its collective mind over Elon. What began as an internal joke at Tesla's Fremont factory had metastasized into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, spreading across social media platforms with the relentless energy of a viral wildfire. By noon Pacific time, the blurred Slack screenshot of Elon Musk asleep at his desk had been repurposed into every conceivable meme format, side-by-side comparisons with historical figures known for their work ethic, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, and even a drowsy-looking Albert Einstein, spliced into movie scenes where characters famously dozed off. The Godfather's Michael Corleone nodding off during a meeting, Frodo sleeping in Rivendell, and even reimagined as Renaissance paintings with dramatic chiaroscuro lighting and captions in faux Latin. The sheer absurdity of it all had turned Elon, for perhaps the first time in his public life, into something approaching relatable. The man who colonized Twitter, launched cars into space, and threatened to put chips in human brains was now, for a brief and glorious moment, just another exhausted guy who had fallen asleep at work. But while the internet reveled in the joke, the reaction inside Tesla's corporate offices was far more complicated. The PR team, led by a perpetually stressed woman named Lydia Cho, had spent the morning in damage control mode, fielding calls from journalists, investors, and even a few concerned shareholders who wanted to know if Elon's impromptu nap was a sign of deeper issues at the company. Lydia had prepared 3 separate press statements, one dismissive. Elon Musk frequently works overnight at Tesla facilities. This was a momentary break between meetings. One humorous. Even visionaries need to recharge. Stay tuned for exciting new wellness initiatives. And one defensive. This is a private matter. Tesla's focus remains on innovation. She had expected Elon to choose the first option. Instead, to her horror, he had taken matters into his own hands and tweeted a single, cryptic message. The revolution will be well rested. #MustEZ. The tweet, naturally, exploded. Within minutes, #MustEZ was trending globally, and Tesla's social media team, usually scrambling to keep up with Elon's unpredictable online presence, seized the opportunity. They posted a teaser image of the sleek, pod-like nap station Elon had sketched earlier, along with a cheeky poll. What should we name it? 1. The Recharge Pod. 2. The Tesla Snooze. 3. The Elon Dreamliner. The response was overwhelming, with thousands of votes pouring in within the first hour. Meanwhile, in the Fremont factory, engineers who had been pulled from their usual projects to work on the pod prototype exchanged bemused glances. Just yesterday, they had been optimizing battery efficiency. Now, they were debating whether the nap pod should include white noise features or built-in meditation guides. Jake, meanwhile, was still reeling from his sudden, accidental fame. His LinkedIn inbox was flooded with messages recruiters offering him jobs at rival tech companies. Your boldness is exactly what we need. Podcast hosts inviting him to discuss workplace humor in the age of viral media, and even a few randoms asking if he could get them a discount on a Model S. His co-workers treated him like a minor celebrity, half-jokingly asking for selfies or begging him to please take a photo of me next so I can go viral too. But beneath the surface, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was all temporary. Elon's mood could shift in an instant. The internet's attention span was famously short. And what happened when the next big meme came along? Then there was the other, more unsettling development, the think pieces. By mid-afternoon, op-eds began popping up across tech and business sites, dissecting what hashtag Nap Elon really meant. Is Elon Musk's sleep deprivation a warning sign for Tesla? Asked Business Insider. The dark side of hustle culture. Even billionaires can't outrun burnout, declared Wired. Some articles framed the nap as an endearing moment of humanity. Others used it as a jumping-off point to critique Tesla's notorious overtime demands. A particularly scathing piece in The Atlantic asked, if the CEO is this exhausted, what does that say about the workers on the factory floor? Elon, for his part, seemed to be enjoying the chaos. He held an impromptu all-hands meeting in the factory cafeteria, where he joked about the memes, showed off early nap pod schematics, and in a move that surprised everyone announced a new company-wide policy, mandatory recharge breaks for employees working more than 12-hour shifts. The room erupted in applause, though a few skeptical whispers lingered. Was this just PR? Would this actually change anything? As the workday wound down, Jake found himself staring at his phone, scrolling through the endless stream of hashtag NapElon content. He had started the day as a nobody. Now he was something else. A catalyst. A cautionary tale? A footnote in Tesla lore? He wasn't sure. All he knew was that tomorrow, the internet would move on. But for Tesla, and for him, nothing would ever be quite the same. The laughter and viral memes had barely faded when the real storm hit Wall Street. By 8 a.m. the next morning, Tesla's stock price had dropped 4.7% in pre-market trading, a plunge that sent shockwaves through investor circles and triggered a cascade of panicked emails between Tesla's executive team and its largest shareholders. The financial analysts' reports were brutal. Musk's Napgate raises governance concerns, declared Morgan Stanley. Is Tesla CEO distracted by side projects including sleep pods? Asked Goldman Sachs. The underlying message was clear what the internet found hilarious. The markets interpreted as instability. And nothing made billionaires more nervous than unpredictability. Inside Tesla's Palo Alto headquarters, the board of directors had convened an emergency meeting. The mood in the glass-walled conference room was tense, the air thick with the scent of overpriced coffee and unspoken frustration. Seated at the head of the table, Robin Denholm, Tesla's chairwoman, scrolled through the morning's headlines with a deepening frown. Elon, we need to address this, she said, her voice calm but firm. The narrative is spiraling. First the nap photo, then the tweet. Now this. She turned her tablet around to show the latest Bloomberg piece. Tesla's Nap Pod initiative sparks investor fears over misplaced priorities. Elon, slouched in his chair with his arms crossed, looked more annoyed than concerned. It's a fucking meme, Robin. The stock will bounce back. It's not just a meme, interjected Antonio Gracias, one of Tesla's longest-serving board members. It's the perception. We're in the middle of ramping up Cybertruck production, battling delays in Berlin, and now the headlines are about napping? The optics are terrible. Across the table, Ira Ehrenpreis, another director, leaned forward. Elon, we're not saying you shouldn't take breaks, but the way this played out unplanned, uncontrolled, it makes Tesla look unserious. And with the SEC still monitoring your every tweet. Oh, come on. Elon snapped. Since when does taking a nap make me unserious? You know how many nights I've spent on the factory floor this quarter. The debate raged for nearly an hour, some directors arguing for a formal statement to reassure investors, others pushing Elon to temporarily step back from social media. A few even suggesting he publicly shelve the nap pod idea to refocus attention on Tesla's core business. Through it all, Elon remained defiant. You're missing the point, he said finally. This isn't a distraction. It's an opportunity. We're getting more free press than we would from a Super Bowl ad. And the pod. It's not just some gimmick. If we can patent this, it's a new revenue stream, corporate wellness contracts, maybe even consumer sales. You think Google and Amazon won't want these for their campuses? Silence fell over the room. The board members exchanged glances. It was classic Elon turning a potential liability into a moonshot. But would it work? Meanwhile, downstairs in the PR bullpen, Lydia Cho was fighting her own battles. Reporters from the Wall Street Journal and CNBC were demanding comments. A particularly aggressive hedge fund manager had just gone on Squawk Box to declare that Tesla needed adult supervision. And worst of all, an anonymous post on Blind, the notoriously leaky workplace app, claimed that Tesla's factory workers were being pressured to skip breaks to meet quotas, directly contradicting Elon's recharge rhetoric. Lydia buried her face in her hands. How had one stupid photo started all this? Back in the factory, Jake Reynolds was doing his best to stay under the radar. The initial euphoria of his notoriety had faded, replaced by a gnawing paranoia. Every sideways glance from a manager felt like a threat. Every laugh in the break room sounded like it might be at his expense. When Diane Harris summoned him to her office again, his stomach dropped. But instead of firing him, she handed him a non-disclosure agreement. "Sign this," she said. "Its standard covers anything you might have seen or heard related to recent events." Jake scanned the document. It was dense with legalese, but one clause jumped out. Employee agrees not to discuss, depict, or otherwise share any internal communications or observations regarding Elon Musk's activities or habits without express written consent. He looked up. "Is this because of the photo?" Diane's expression was unreadable. "It's because the world doesn't need a sequel." As Jake signed, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just crossed an invisible line from being the guy who captured a moment to the guy who'd been silenced by it. Outside, the sun was setting over Silicon Valley. Somewhere, a Bloomberg terminal flashed with the latest update. Tesla recovers slightly after Musk hints at major product roadmap update next week. The cycle was already turning, but in quiet corners of the internet, new threads were popping up. Did Tesla just gaslight us about burnout culture? Why did that employee sign an NDA? What aren't they telling us? The nap was over. The real wake-up call was just beginning.